Y'all ready?
Fish Stripes Live. We are back in your life, even though Marlins season is over. It's Eli Sussman here. We're going to get started with the normal show in a minute, but just a quick word off the top about this guy behind me, Ethan Badowski. He, on these live streams during the season, I would have to say he talked more than anybody else here, once you think, because he was hosting a lot of those shows. He was kind of the impetus behind why we got these shows started in the first place, the fact that he was going to be available and he was going to put so much effort into these Marlins live streams, but 50 of them. And so an appreciation for him for making this a thing that the rest of us kind of wanted to do and kept doing. And we're going to continue doing it through a lot of the off season. Tentative plan is maybe once a week, maybe right around this time slot, Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Just let us know in the comments if you think this would be a good time for us to do our Marlins talk throughout the off season. But for whatever shows we're going to do, we will have a whole lot of people here doing it with me. And when I'm not talking and doing things behind the screen, I know Kevin, he has a real passion for leading these conversations. And we've actually got a lot of stuff to cover here on just a week and a half into the Marlins offseason. Where do you want to go first, Kevin?
I'm going to take it more to Isaac here. I know you're at the fall developmental camp, so let's start with that. What did you like? What didn't you like? And there is some news about Bennett Hostetler, so we'll get to that one as well.
Yeah, well, to start off with Hostetler, we thought it was a typo when the rosters came out for this development camp, and he is being, moved to being a catcher, which is a bit surprising. I asked Daniel if he's ever caught before in his life, and he said no. Sort of a similar thing to JT Realmuto. So yeah, Hostetler will be a catcher from here on out, and he's a young kid, so it's not too interesting there. Definitely, I think he was a third baseman, so it's a little peculiar, but he's going to be a catcher. And then the rest of the camp, today was a simulated game, and some things that stood out was Joe Mack's power. He hit one in like Jazz Chisholm territory in right field, which was tremendous to see. Jose Salas showed off some power as well. He hit one over the right field fence. Cody Morris hit, Connor Scott showed some really nice play. Obviously, it's just pitching machine, and so it's fastballs, but they had really good swings. And then I guess one negative was Griffin Conine, known for his strikeout problems. He's the only guy that struck out today, the entire simulated game. But overall, it was nice to see. They were starting the innings off with runners on second base, and it was a little strange, but they all played well. And for the most part, like the names that I mentioned, Cody Morissette, Connor Scott, Jose Salas, they really stood out to me.
Yeah. Daniel, you have anything to say about, the fall developmental camp, your thoughts on Hostetler going to catcher, which I guess it might have caught us all by surprise at some point?
Yeah, I think with that decision, it goes well for the Marlins because that's the one position that the Marlins are in probably more than a desperate need to fill. And then anytime you have someone there, it's another chance of someone that could potentially, eventually come up to the Marlins and maybe hopefully fill that void. But probably the players I'm most intrigued by is Joe Mack and Cody Morissette. Two guys drafted early in the draft, see how they develop, see where they go from here, and especially, going into next season, and hopefully see how long it takes them to come up to the major leagues, or at least, the AA, AAA level, because those are guys with unlimited potential that can, benefit the Marlins sooner rather than later.
Noah, what are your thoughts on, what you've been seeing or hearing from the development camp? You're muted.
Great. I haven't really been seeing much. I've been seeing what Isaac's been posting. I haven't really been hearing much. There's not really much to talk about other than the fact that Hostetler's moved to catcher, which is shades of JT Realmuto. I don't think he's gonna be as good as JT Realmuto, but be interesting to see. I would like it if Griffin Conine didn't strike out against a pitching machine that was only pitching fastballs. But there's work to be done.
Yeah, just some background on Hostetler. People got to realize he was picked at the very, very end of the draft. Every team passed over him a bunch of times to fall to the 18th round. And like, he even signed for a bonus that wasn't even the maximum allowable for guys outside the first 10 rounds. It just tells you that he came out of nowhere. He really did, to have the numbers that he put up this year. And I kind of caution people before getting too excited, because he's old. I believe he's the oldest hitter that they drafted in this class. Now, he's already 24 years old, even though he just got started with his pro career. And my theory is that this is some sort of plan not to make him a full-time catcher, but to make it part of his mix, maybe to set up a situation where he could be one of those rare utility players that could do both catcher and a non-catcher position. That's what they try to do with Jorge Alfaro, I guess, kind of on the fly. But like, realistically, there are a really small number of guys you can think about around the league that do catcher and non-catcher at like an acceptable level. And they're not really thinking that far ahead into him being a big leaguer, because, as I said, he's coming from out of nowhere. Like, it's still too early to even dream about that. But just as he moves into the upper minors, I think they're setting him up to be like a really unique utility player, not a Real Muto type, but like an Austin Nola type or an Austin Barnes type. If people follow those guys' career pretty closely, that would be a pretty amazing scenario for a guy that went so deep into the draft.
Yeah, and I know Alex for sure is gonna, whenever he joins, he's gonna, I guess, get more into depth on Hostetler and what he brings at that catcher position. I mean, what else can we really talk about the developmental camp? I mean, Griffin Conine strikes out a bit. Jose Salas had a good homer. Joe Max, slugging. It's good. These are all good signs. And Khalil Watson wasn't playing. I don't know if there's like a reason why for that, Isaac.
Oh yeah, no, there was no reason. A lot of guys didn't play. Victor didn't play, and Giordano made a funny joke that even in these developmental lineups, you can't even crack the starting lineup. But no, Khalil did not play either. But I did see him on day one of the media session for this developmental camp, and boy, for a short guy, compared to other guys, he has some immense power. He's flicking them over to the center field wall pretty easily, and that was just normal batting practice, not with a machine. And yeah, he stood out to me as well as one of the guys.
Yeah, so I did want to get to the Arizona Fall League, but I think I'm going to wait a little bit for Alex to see if he joins so he can, I guess, dig into that a little bit deeper. So I do want to talk about the Wilson Contreras stuff. I know me and Isaac were talking about that today on Twitter at some point. And, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? I'm going to start with Daniel here. I mean, Wilson Contreras to Miami. Do you see it happening? I mean, what would be maybe some possible players that could go over to Chicago in this kind of a trade?
And that's just going to be tough, because I think other teams really value the prospects of the Marlins a lot, especially someone like Max Meyer, Kyle Nicholas, Zach McCambley. So it's really on how much the Marlins want to give up for someone like Wilson Contreras. So they want to give up 2 guys, 3, but hopefully it's maybe they give him someone like a Zach McCambley, because I think someone like Kyle Nicholas and Max Meyer, those guys are a little more valuable than getting Wilson Contreras. I think they get a little more, maybe of a better player with guys like that in an offer. But it's really going to come up to what the Marlins and what they want to give up more than maybe what other teams want to take out from them. So some maybe like McCambley, someone like that is really probably going to be the driving force to get Contreras.
Yeah, and I want to go here to Noah. I mean, this guy's on a 1-year deal, so possibly his value isn't as high as we might think if he were on a maybe 2 or 3 year deal. So, I mean, would you be happy with this kind of an acquisition if the Marlins got this guy on a 1-year rental and he just didn't come back next season? But I mean, Miami's turned into more of a, I guess, luring spot for free agents. I mean, this team is really on the rise.
See why free agents would want to come here, but
maybe more
they can't go after Contreras unless they're planning on extending him. They just can't do it. If they do that and he ends up only being here for a year and then he's gone, that's a 100% failure on the organization. There's no other way to put it. Unless you trade him, which is dumb, and you get like some out of this world player, then no. The only way this works is if you get him and extend him. You can't just have him for a year.
Well, I see your point there too, but also keep in mind, getting him for 1 year, it won't cost a lot on the Marlins side. It will cost a pretty decent haul. But remember, it's basically 2020 or 2022 or bust. They have to win this year. And if they were to, somehow miraculously make somewhat of a playoff run or even like a really good year, and they just have him for the 1 year because there's no way he's going to sign an extension. I think he's one of the better catchers that's going to hit the market in a long time. Realmuto's locked up, Salvi's locked up, so I don't think an extension is really likely. So if the Marlins were to trade for him and just like get a full year of him, I think it would really like be beneficial more
Well,
than.
you have to have a plan for the catching position. Is 1 year of Wilson Contreras enough to hold you over until guys like until the guys that we have in the minor leagues are ready? Is that 1 year enough, or do you need him for another
No,
year to get to
they're
that?
gonna
Are
have
we gonna
to-
be back in the position with guys that are of the level of Jorge Alfaro and Sandy Leon and Alex Jackson catching because we don't have anybody that's ready? I don't want that to happen again. It was painful.
They'd be putting themselves in a similar situation next offseason. Correct.
Putting the franchise in the hands of Nick Fortes and his
Right.
172 WRC plus, that probably is going to go down a lot if he was in an expanded role. But that was a lot of fun seeing Fortes, and I've been pretty high on like Contreras being, if not like potentially the highest priority player they could go after this offseason, just because the guy only has like 1 year left of control left. Even if he hits like free agency, it depends like the other moves that they make. I mean, if the team continues to really be restrained with their spending, I mean, they could have a ton of flexibility going into next year. They could be in a position where they could actually outbid other people for one particular player that they absolutely love. So it's not, I kind of agree with Isaac that at this point, there's a pretty strong likelihood that Contreras is dead set on going into free agency. Like, even though the Cubs could get more back in return in a trade, if he like agrees to an extension as the deal happens, what does that do for him? He understands that there's just so many limited good catching options in the league right now. The Marlins are not the only team like that feels this kind of desperation to improve. And that's why even if he only has like 1 year remaining, they'll have to give up a couple young players that they really like in order to get it done. But it's in a situation where if the Marlins do take this seriously, they're in a position where they can make this kind of trade without draining their farm, and they could sign him long term without draining their entire payroll. They have all this flexibility, and they got to do something with it. And he's a great candidate to like do that thing with.
Yeah,
And
if they go trade route for catcher and get Wilson, that frees up all the free agent money for what they need, which is outfield and starting center fielder. So I think that's got to be where they pivot is Wilson Contreras. I think he could be a number 3 or 4 hitter in this lineup right now. So I think that's where you got to go.
And you talk about free agency, really. I mean, there isn't much there when it comes to catchers. I guess the most flashiest player there would be Mike Zunino, who was a pretty good player, and I don't see him going back to the Rays next season, as they have, pretty good catching prospects there. I think they have Mejia there as well. So I don't really see Zunino going back. But besides that, I mean, Tucker Barnhart, he's on a club option. So if the Reds take that, I mean, he's no longer a free agent. So, I mean, you really look at it, there's many ways it could go. But I do want to ask, I guess, Isaac here. I mean, Peyton Burdick was the deal breaker last time, I would say, for the Cubs. Do you think the Marlins would do it now, especially, I guess, since value's risen a lot with this guy? I mean, do you think Burdick now being put in the trade, would the Marlins do it?
Possibly. I think the struggles of Blade sort of, maybe makes them think twice about pulling a trigger on a Peyton Burdick type, because probably of all the outfielders, maybe besides Meisner, Burdick performed the best of all their minor league outfielders.
Yeah.
So it would be risky to do that. But I think if it's Burdick and not much else, I think you go ahead and do it for 1 year of one of the better catchers in baseball. So I think the Marlins would do it. I think they have desperation to win, and I think they feel all the pressure in the world to win. So yeah, Peyton Burdick, and maybe they don't need to include Burdick. Maybe they can include other guys and do a plethora of pitching prospects. Who knows? But if it were Burdick right now, I would do it, and I think they would too.
And the Marlins do have De La Cruz, so I guess it gives them a little more depth. So it makes a little more sense to trade a guy like Burdick over to the Cubs now, especially since you have De La Cruz, who really has played at the major leagues, and when Burdick really hasn't. I mean, it makes a lot of sense there. I mean, what other catching options are there? I mean, no, what guys do you think could really the Marlins look at besides a guy like Wilson Contreras? I mean, there's Jacob Stallings, if you want to talk a little bit about him.
Yeah,
And there's some others that were mentioned. I
Jacob
think it
Stallings
was
is who
in
I
an
had
article.
on my mind. And that's
Only
all I
one?
got. That's really
It's
all I got.
Stallings. I listened to the podcast yesterday. Tucker Barnhart would be more of a backup option, but he could be another option as well. And my favorite free agent one would either be Mike Zunino or Jan Gomes. Those are the two free agents that I would look at as well. But you got to start at the top, and that's with Wilson.
I mean, if we're really starting at the top, we'll go up to Salvi, but no.
No, he just extended.
It was a joke.
Oh.
You could have another Wilson, Wilson Ramos.
no.
That's a consolation for the Marlins.
He was an exciting guy. What, only like 3 years ago? Well, actually, I mean, at the beginning of this year, remember he was
on
leading the majors in
He
home
was on
runs
the
for a second,
Tigers.
like back in April, and then Father Time caught up with him.
Yeah. There's also, Mitch Garver, which I know Marlins and Twins big time when it comes to trading. They did the Sergio Romo trade, which the Marlins absolutely robbed them in that deal. And they did have interest in Eliezer. Daniel, is that something you would be for? And especially since Max Kepler is on that team, so maybe they can make some kind of a deal to bring both Garver and Kepler.
In a heartbeat. I would do that in a heartbeat. Getting rid of, I don't say getting rid of, but trading Eliezer, especially, that's the one position that the Marlins are able to maybe get rid of a couple players, especially major league guys, if it meant to help other positions, getting Max Kepler and Mitch Garver, those were instantly improve the Marlins lineup. Whereas you have, Eliezer, who would be a 6 rotation guy, a long relief pitcher for the Marlins, but you could trade someone like that. You still have other guys like Busardo and Pablo if he's still here, and you could get someone like Kepler and Garver. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, Eli, let's say the Marlins somehow don't make, one of the trades for any catcher. Unfortunately. Internally, who would be that guy you would go to start opening day?
I don't even like that hypothetical.
I don't like it either, but
somebody. They need to get somebody, even if it's not like a surefire starter. They need
they re-signed Sandy Leon.
That's a mess. Yeah, if they do that, then probably Nick Fortes has the leg up. But even I'm a little apprehensive before giving him like too much of props, considering where he was spending most of this past season at AA. Alex Jackson is in a really weird position, man, because like in his short time, he showed the kind of raw power that he has is special. It really is. And I think in terms of defensively, there was more good than bad with him, and probably more good with him than even with like Nick Fortes. If you put it all together, it's just that total absence of a hit tool is pretty stark. It's pretty bleak, man. When you swing and miss as much as he does and all that stuff, they're in a really bad spot if they don't do anything. They need to do something. I'm going to operate under the assumption that they make some kind of move. And there are going to be enough catchers available in free agency where you can make cheap 1-year deals for guys who have been there and done that before. So at the very least, they're going to do something.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into the Fall League, which I guess has been the biggest story of the day, but I guess in a negative way for guys like Meisner and Blade, who went both 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, which that's not good at all. Evan Fitter had a pretty good outing. I mean, 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and his ERA ended at 2.25. So I guess that's something good. Then we also saw Jeffrey Yan, Justin Evans, and Will Banfield got 2 walks. So I'm going to start here with Isaac. What are your thoughts on that Arizona Fall League, which pretty sure the Mesa Sox lost, I think it was 5-0.
Incredible game.
Yeah, I was able to keep up a little bit. I know Fitterer. I'm excited to see him pitch in the Fall League this year. He pitched pretty well, but just walked a few too many. But he held his own a little bit, and then just Blade and Meisner struck out a combined 7-8 times, I think it was.
Both golden sombreros for both.
So 8 strikeouts between the two of them. But in their defense, I think they had a long layoff since their AA season was cut short. But definitely not like the fun offensive start you'd want to see. But hey, it's a long AFL season.
Eli, what were your thoughts?
It's just one game. One game out of 30. I believe that's the plan to play that many for this entire AFL season. Evan Fitterer is probably the guy I'm most focused on. He's the youngest guy that they sent in this group, one of the youngest guys on the whole team in that Mesa Solar Sox team. And he didn't get to play much this year. He had some back issues. It's been reported by MLB Pipeline. So that kept him out from what should have been mostly a full season in Jupiter. And so he really needs to make up for his lost time. And there were some like positive signs, from this outing again, where he's one of the younger guys in this league, and yet being able to go 4 innings and striking out 5 in the process. I call that a nice first step with him. The way that this stuff usually plays out is when you start at the beginning of the season, they usually keep a steady rotation throughout this fall league. So it seems like he's going to actually be starting probably once a week for these next 5 weeks. That's a good way to build up his workload. And we'll just see, like, more importantly, how good is he? We're going to finally have some games later on, some road games where they have all that StatCast data that I know Noah loves, and I love it. We don't have it for this game, but we're going to get it for a few of his future games when they go to ballparks that have the infrastructure to do that. I'm just really excited to see what kind of numbers he's putting up in that regard, kind of under the hood. That's going to go a long way in terms of what type of player we think he could be moving forward. And potentially, if he's involved in one of these big trades that we're thinking about, he is one of the better pitching prospects. And you can't consider anybody to be totally safe if they are really that determined to be a competitive team next year.
Yeah, Daniel, I mean, for the people that are down about Blade and Meisner going 0 for 4, what can you tell them? I mean, to just get them up, cheer them up, tell them that everything's going to be fine, because we hope it is, to be honest.
I think everything's going to be fine, because I don't think the Marlins are going to set these guys up for failure, especially someone like Blade, top 5 pick. They're going to do whatever it takes to get this guy MLB ready, to make sure he's in the zone. They're not going to, do anything mechanically or try to maybe screw him up a little. They're going to give him every opportunity, give him rest, give him what he needs, either mentally, physically, to have him prepare and to have, Meisner prepared for them to be, major league ready, go to the AAA, because those are guys the Marlins pick pretty early in the draft, especially Blade, and they have really high expectations for. And I know they did have kind of a down year, but I think it's just time. I think time is always going to be the answer, and for guys like this. And I think, in a couple of years, they're probably going to be MLB ready, and they're going to shock a little bit of people, especially if you look at this year.
Noah, which was one of your, I guess, favorite players that is going now to the Arizona Fall League, or which one are you most high on in this scenario, in this case?
I don't really know. I hope all of them succeed. I don't really have a favorite of any of them. I hope they all do well. I haven't really been paying attention to them all that much. I will admit the Panthers season is about to start, so I'm kind of tuned out of Marlins stuff. So there's not really much for me to say there.
Fair enough, to be honest. I mean, after seeing that garbage of a season the Marlins went through, it's time for a break on that. I mean, Isaac.
The Panthers are going to win the cup, so.
Isaac, Jeffrey Yan, we saw him. We also saw Josh Simpson and, I guess, Justin Evans. What were your thoughts on those guys?
I didn't get to see them. I don't think anyone got to see these guys. But to answer your question that you asked Noah, the guy that I'm highest on is definitely Cameron Meisner. I know Alex has a huge, love for this guy right now. I think he is just the most complete player of all these guys. I know he fell to the Marlins. I think it was like the supplementary pick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he was a first round talent all the way through, except he just struggled in tournament play. He hit like 222. And he just didn't perform well. But he's a body, man. That kid, he's a specimen. So if he can just put it together a little bit, he's a guy where, okay, if he hits, he's like Mookie Betts. It's like a Monte Harrison reference that Don Mattingly used. But Cameron Meisner, he can throw, he can hit for power. So that's the guy who I'm going to watch really closely.
Yeah, as you said, I know Alex does have a big crush on him, using him and Christian Yelich in the same sentence. As is always the case with Alex, I agree with him on a lot, except with his player comps. He kind of goes overboard. I would not put those two in the same sentence right away, because Yelich was already a big leaguer by the time that, at the same age that Meisner is right now. He just played so well the last couple months of the season, and he made that jump to Double-A without a hitch. Like, he was hitting just as well at Double-A as he was late in the season with High A after he got that promotion. So yeah, it's a big proving ground for him. There's still a lot of questions to me about him just being able to hit and being able to, he's going to draw his walks, and he sprays line drives all over the field when he makes contact. It's like the ideal, perfect type of contact. He really gets it. Like, that's the kind of, if everything goes together, it really is like an all-star potential. But still, yeah, a lot to prove against higher level competition. You could This, I guess, in the AFL, it's kind of arguably similar to what he saw at AA, but he's actually going to get even more reps here than he got at the end of the season with Pensacola. So all those reps against a variety of guys with nasty stuff. Yeah, he's probably more so than any of the other position players. I'm most locked into him.
Yeah, I mean, the one last thing I wanted to talk about the AFL until I guess Alex joins would be JJ Bleday. I mean, the guy did not have the best season in Pensacola. At the end of the season, he did have his moments. He was pretty good. Is this someone that you would even think, like, cross your mind that they would trade a top 5 pick? I mean, I'm gonna start here with Isaac. I mean, is that something you would even consider to happen, or to even put him on the block, or say, hey, like, we'll offer you Bleday for Brian Reynolds or Contreras,
No, I don't think so. I don't. It's just a strange situation when like such a high draft pick struggles that mightily right off the bat. I mean, I think he did end up being an average hitter according to weighted runs created plus at the end of the season, or right below it. But I don't think you just trade him. I think maybe if he has a good first half and someone becomes available that you really really want and has a couple of years of control, then maybe. But I don't think the Marlins or Jeter or Denbo are thinking about this whatsoever. I mean, they kept Brinson for 5 years, and Derek Jeter, Michael Hill, and Kim Ng wasn't there yet. Michael Hill, Jorge Posada, they all went to Vanderbilt to watch him play, to watch this kid play, and they selected him with the 4th overall pick. So I don't think, whether it's right or wrong, I don't think they're going to ever come close to trading.
Noah, what do you trade Bleday? I'm just gonna pretty much go down the list here of you guys.
If we get a good return, then yeah, I trade most guys if we get a good return.
Eli.
No,
What do you want me to say?
Yeah, that's a weird question, Kevin. At this moment,
Yeah,
they need to give him more time. I mean, I was probably higher on him at this time a year ago than any other prospect in the organization. I did not imagine a scenario where he would just fail to impact the ball. That was his biggest issue this year, at least like putting balls in play. Like he would have all these pitches that he just missed and he would foul it back. But in terms of the balls that he actually put in play, the lack of power this year was really surprising for a guy that obviously he led all of college baseball in home runs in order to set himself up to be that super high draft pick in the first place. I forgot I had all these nice pics of these players in their fall league uniforms. There's Meisner, for people that don't know. So that's Cameron Meisner. And then we got Will Banfield. Hold on.
I need that hat. That hat is electric.
Yeah. For the Mesa Solar Sox, which is it's
That's
better.
That's quite a name.
What, the Solar
The
Sox?
Solar Sox.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's better than the Salt. Well, the Salt River Rafters was a good name too, but their logo was like not in the same tier as this one. Then we got on the pitching side, this is Evan Fitter. This is the baby of the group.
He almost looks as young as Kevin.
He's from the same draft class as Meisner and Bleday, but both those guys were college guys going into the draft, and Fitter was just coming out of high school that year. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have Jeffrey Yan, who is he's 25 going on 26, and he was the one that struck out the side today. And then these last two guys, I struggled to tell them apart. Justin Evans and then Josh Simpson. But they throw from different sides. So that's like the big difference. Said one of them is a lefty and one of them is a righty. And Justin Evans is a righty. This guy is the lefty. So that's
I think I have a question about those pitchers. Who do you think is probably most likely to get? I don't want maybe the call up to the Marlins the fastest. Would it be Jan or one of these guys or Fitter? Who do you think it have maybe the fastest track to get to the majors?
Ooh, well, I guess you'd have to say the one that has the potential to get there quick, because it's always the relievers. Jeffrey Yan is like a relief only type of guy for sure at this stage of his career. So if they really love what he does this fall, then he's going to be major league invite in spring training. And I mean, if everything breaks right, he could be up almost at the very beginning of next season. He's the one guy that could be up early if things come together. I got really big questions about his control, though. I mean, his ERA was nice this year, but that's because it covered up for a lot of unearned runs that he kind of contributed to. He's still kind of a work in progress, despite being the oldest one. If it's not him, it would be Bleday. It's really between him and Bleday, because obviously Bleday goes back to being the guy we thought he was after spending a whole year in Double-A. Then he'll start next year maybe at Triple-A, and then as soon as he goes on a hot streak and as soon as there's an opening in their outfield, then he would. I think it's still a pretty strong possibility that he's in the majors during the first half of next season at some point, despite the struggles that he had. But they did go kind of relatively young and inexperienced with this group because Banfield is multiple years away. Evan Fitterer is multiple years away. Justin Evans, let me put up Justin Evans again. Justin Evans is kind of a converted position player. He played a whole lot of infield in college, and he didn't play any minor league games officially in 2019, and obviously not last year. And he's going here in the fall league just to kind of learn how to pitch. He's kind of going out there, still getting accustomed to being a pitcher. So he is obviously a big wild card where a lot has to go right for him to make it to the bigs at any point. But at least it's a big group. I like that they sent 8 guys. Like they used as many slots as possible just to give us people to think about.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Yan, just looking at his numbers, 31 innings pitched, 25 walks versus 51 strikeouts. So you can already kind of tell the kind of pitcher he is. But yeah, he's definitely going to have to fix that control.
And joining us, Alex Carver. How are you, man? What are your thoughts on the fall league? Which is what we're actually talking about right now.
Yeah, what's up, guys? It's good to be back. Thanks for having me back in again. Off-season talk. It's probably been fun for you guys so far. I was finishing up work, but here I am. So, anyways, fall league's always fun. I mean, it's just a time for guys to get reps. Guys that the Marlins want to see, or that all teams want to see more of, that maybe got hurt, or just guys that struggled and they want to see them get more reps. And it's like basically glorified spring training. It's as much as it's cool to see, baseball continue in the off season. Don't put a ton of stock into these games. We saw Blade and Meisner each struck out 4 times today. Grain of salt, man. I mean, it sucks to see guys strike out no matter what, but yeah, I mean, these guys are working on things. They're trying to fix things. It's good to see Fitterer get in there and do really well against older competition. He's a kid pitching in single A. He's pitching against much older guys, and he did pretty good. 3 walks, but went 4 innings, 5 strikeouts. So I like that. Banfield walked twice. He had a kind of lower walk, like 8% walk rate during the season, and really struggled. So to see him get on base twice was good. And then I'm really intrigued. I heard you guys just talking about Jeffrey Yan. That's a guy that's 25. He was drafted in the international draft as a 16-year-old and cut by the Angels, and the Marlins found him basically playing in semi-pro ball, and he's up to 97 with a dead nasty slider. So that's a guy I think that could be moved pretty quickly, and you could see him pitching out of the Marlins bullpen maybe next season. So I like him. But yeah, 8 guys, as Eli said, a lot of guys to follow. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, what else do you think we can mention about this Arizona Fall League, Alex? Any, I guess, disappointments in this first game, even though it's 1 game, but I mean, besides that, I mean, disappointments of any of these guys besides obviously, Blade with the 4Ks, Meisner 4Ks. I mean, what would you tell the people that are like watching this right now, to cheer them up about, what the future is for these guys?
Yeah, no, it's as I just said. This is a time where guys are just working on things, especially a guy like Blade that really struggled. He had a great, I wrote this yesterday. He had a great last month of the season and finished strong. I think he really found simpler mechanics. He's much closer to his body with his arms, getting extended better. He's getting to balls on his hands a little bit better. And I think that's what you saw the last month. This is a time for him just to completely iron it out and get it settled. So I know there's a lot of talk on Twitter about give up on Blade. Blade is a bust, blah, blah, blah. I'm not there, man. You know me. I hang on to these guys probably longer than a lot, but I don't think any of us in here should give up on JJ Blade because I think he definitely has the tools necessary. He just needed to work it out, man. He needed to find his way. And after a missed season, that's a lot of guys that happen to a lot of players, not just JJ Blade. Of course, he's going to get called out more because he is who he is and he was picked where he was picked. And, people are going to freak out, but, let him iron it out. Let him come back next season. If he struggles like he did this season again next season, then it's time to start worrying about him. But yeah, just let him work it out. It's a good time for him to be in Arizona. I'm glad that they invited him for sure. And then Meisner, that guy only struck out 3+ times in 15 games this year. So that's an outlier. So the Wahoo season ended early, maybe a little rust to him. The guy's going to be fine. That guy's a stud. I really like him. So no disappointments for me, really, man. Just work things out and get better. That's what you want to see.
Yeah, what were your thoughts on?
Actually,
Yeah.
you mentioned I love Miser as well. I mentioned he's my favorite one in the Arizona Fall League. But you say he struck out 3 times, 15 times. I feel that's a lot. Like that's a lot. Like to have 3 strikeouts in a game 15 times, that's a lot.
Yeah, look at it season wide though, dude. You know what I mean?
of
Like
course,
just look
of
at it
course.
season wide. It's his first full season. You know,
Yeah.
he really didn't strike out a ton. Like the K rate was manageable. That's what I mean to say. It's a guy that's not going to never strike out. You can't
No,
say
no.
that. But 15 games in your first pro season, you strike out 3+ times. I guess it's kind of a lot, but
Yeah.
you know what? First full year, so. Let him work it out. What I meant to say is the K rate, it was very, very manageable. And then all of his stats across the board were great. And this is while he's jumping up to the AA level to end the year. So let it ride, man. That's what I mean to say. I think both of those guys are going to be fine. No reason to worry about either one.
And I wanted to get quickly with you on Fitter because this has been a name that we've been hearing, I guess, swirling a little bit in trade rumors to Contreras, Brian Reynolds, possibly. I mean, what were your thoughts on his outing, and does this kind of get that value up, or where do you see it in terms of a trade and the way he played today?
Yeah, for sure. As I said, it's a younger kid playing against mostly older competition. So you like to see that. He goes 4 innings, he throws 70-something pitches, and he gets 5 strikeouts. Did contribute 3 walks, but limited it to 1 run. So I think there was like 4 hits mixed in too. So wasn't untouchable by any means. But as I said, jumping up a long way up the minor league ladder, that's good to see. And a lot of these guys are top prospects. And like I said, guys that teams want to get a bigger look at. So pitched up against Asa Lacy, who the Marlins were supposed to get in the 2020 draft and didn't. They get Max Meyer instead. So yeah, I mean, good to see for sure. And a guy that could definitely be talked about in a trade, as you said, Kevin. One of those younger guys that a lot of these rebuilding teams will look to. Throw him in there with Perez and other guys like that. So yeah, good to see. I mean, can you boost trade value in the Arizona Fall League? Debatable, but maybe.
Yeah, and shocker to everyone, the Marlins didn't make the playoffs this season. So the Marlins didn't make it. Somehow they didn't make it. We're all, I think, very shocked about that. But other teams did, and I do want to go to Daniel here. What has been your favorite series of the playoffs so far, or favorite moment? Because Marlins talk, there's much of it, but playoff talk, there is a lot.
Honestly, I think the moment that really stood out to me was the wild card game with the Yankees and the Red Sox, and then the home run by Stanton, where it goes to the Green Monster, and then you have all the announcers, the fans, the radio guys, literally losing their minds, thinking it was a home run, and then he's stuck at first base, and that whole game was crazy. Then you have Aaron Judge rounding home base, the call literally bring him home, and I think that's what literally turned the tide to Boston, and them getting now to the ALCS. Really all started there. I think that was really, for me, maybe the biggest moment of the playoffs, and one that really stood out. All starting off with the Giancarlo Stanton 450-foot single.
Yeah, and I want to get to Noah, who I know you've been pretty active on Twitter when it comes to the playoffs. I'm pretty sure your favorite series may have been that Tampa Bay
I
Boston Red
was
Sox series.
so happy when the Yankees lost. I cannot even begin to describe my sheer joy when the Yankees lost. Although I think Stanton deserves better, 100% deserves better. He played his butt off that whole game, and the whole season he's played his butt off. There have been some wacky plays this year in the playoffs. Like all the weirdest rules, weirdest plays, everything just showed up all at once in the last few days. That play in Boston where it hit off the wall, the ground, Renfroe, and then went out, which honestly, that should have been a run for the Rays. And although by rule it's not a run, it should be a run. When I think it was White Sox Astros with who was running the first base and blocked the throw to
Yasmani Grandal.
Yasmani Grandal, who, by the way, to his credit, brilliant play on his part. Shouldn't be allowed, but brilliant play on his part, blocking the throw to home plate to allow the run to score. All the weirdest things are coming up this year, and it's kind of entertaining. The Dodgers and Giants going to 5 games. Perfect for baseball. Perfect.
Yeah, and I want to get to you, Isaac. I mean, you see all these teams in the playoffs. What is something the Marlins could learn from all of these playoff teams? And I guess I'll pretty much go to everyone here, but I mean, we look at the Rays, which is the team that I guess the Marlins idol in some way. So, I mean, what can they learn?
Yeah, I was gonna say just look no further than St. Pete, good like 300 miles west and north of us. Just yeah, man, how they just don't deal with bullshit. They don't put up with it for more than half a season. Yeah, Aguilar, Dickerson, those are Rays guys, and they said, okay, get out of here because obviously for some it worked out, for some it didn't. Dickerson, it was a good call. Aguilar ended up having a little bit more in the tank. So, and then something that I just thought was really awesome. They had 3 rookies start their playoff season, which was just awesome, man. Like, and that's how like they know how to develop. And every single time they needed someone to come up, they needed a rookie, whether it was Xavier Edwards or Vidal Brujan or Wander Franco or Shane McClan, or I'm not sure if I pronounced his name correctly.
Shane Baz.
Shane Baz. They all came up and they're ready. Like, they're not going 1 for 25 like Jesus did not. They have guys that they know and they can stick in the lineup right away in a case of emergency, and they perform. But wow, they really know what they're doing, and yeah, it's been fun. And so far, of my favorite moments of the playoffs, I just have to say that Chris Taylor walk-off was pretty. That wildcard game was one of the best games I've seen in a long time. Like, that was definitely the game of the playoffs for me so far. And also the game last night not 2 nights ago, I'm sorry, Boston and Tampa Bay, when Boston clinched it, and that was a nice game as well.
Future Marlin Chris Taylor.
Yeah,
yeah,
future Marlin.
If you want to talk about like a little storyline that I'm kind of fixated on, it is the Dodgers, and it is. I'm sure they're not going to let like one playoff run skew their plans too much one way or the other. I kind of think that they were leaning towards letting Chris Taylor go off to the highest bidder anyway, and they weren't that interested in re-signing it. But Gavin Lux is someone who was like their consensus best prospect for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And in the major leagues, for the most part, he's been not a total bust, but he's been a little underwhelming. He was supposed to be like one of the better young hitters in the entire league, and it hasn't really shown up in regular season games. And he's had like some moments already in this first series against the Giants. I'm rooting for him to like kind of lead them through these playoffs because he's someone that is emerging in that Chris Taylor mold, kind of where he came up as a middle infielder, but pretty quickly they're realizing he's someone that's comfortable moving around to different positions, and he's cheap and he's controllable. And he's a guy that if he seems to finally be clicking at these most important moments, it makes them even more likely to not be a serious bidder for someone like Chris Taylor, seeing that they might be able to trust this guy internally to fill his shoes. And that makes it easier for the Marlins to go after that one particular guy that I'm sure I'm not the only one that is kind of like circled Chris Taylor as someone that'd be a great fit and someone that's kind of worth spending whatever you got to spend to get him.
I thought Alfaro would have made more sense in that spot, but and Chris Taylor's pretty good too. Alex,
don't forget Donnie compared Chris Taylor and Alfaro when mentioning guys who can play multiple positions.
He compares everybody with everybody.
Monte Harrison is Mookie Betts. Max Muncy is Jorge Alfaro. Donnie has had some great quotes this year. Kim Ang said something funny as well. They've been great ones this year.
Yeah, and if we could probably go back to some of those and just literally laugh the shit out of them because it was pretty funny to see. Alex, your thoughts on the playoffs? I mean, what's been your favorite series? I know we've seen a lot of those rookies, which I know you're a big fan of, especially in Tampa, which I think that's where we've seen the most rookies come out. So what have been your thoughts on the postseason so far?
Yeah, no, it's always fun. It's always entertaining. We really haven't really had much, put into it because other than last year, the Marlins haven't been there. So it's just fun to watch and fun to see other teams and teams that know what they're doing and know how to get it done. And the Rays are definitely one of them. The Braves are another one. For me, a guy I always love watching, especially in the playoffs. Look at this guy's postseason numbers. Is Randy Arozarena. That guy is insane. He had a great year, and then he's just crazy good in the playoffs, like so clutch. He has like a 354 batting average in the playoffs, which is like insane.
And he had a straight steal of home.
Right, steals home plate, hits in the clutch. Like that's a good player, like really good player. And man, you look back at it. As much as I like the Sandy Alcantara trade, which was amazing, if you could have plucked him back from the Cardinals, man, that's even more of a ridiculous trade than it already was. So, yeah, that would have been nice. But, yeah, I like that guy. I like the Rays. They know what they're doing, as Isaac said. It's a team that just doesn't take crap. If they see that you're not performing and they see that, it's not going to work out and you don't play to what they want analytically, they don't give you a long leash. And they're willing to say, hey, even if you may be good somewhere else, you're not good for us and you're out. So, and that's something, as we've talked about ad nauseum, that the Marlins cannot do. And hopefully they learn from it. As you want to talk about something to learn from, that's the main thing overall that the Marlins can learn from. So yeah, I like the Rays series. I think this Dodgers Giants is going to be really good, or it has been really good. And then, the job what the Giants did this whole year is crazy as well. And we know Ethan's been talking about that. So yeah, fun to watch. And it's good to see good baseball, because we lived through a lot of bad baseball this year.
Yeah, I mean, seeing this Marlins team and seeing all these other teams, you notice it. Like I'll say this. I was watching the Tampa Boston series. I immediately noticed how different it was from seeing a Marlins game, where the Marlins don't actually get a hit until like the 6th or 7th inning, and you see Boston and Tampa just getting hits back to back. It's crazy how good these teams are compared to the Marlins, and then you wonder, how have we hyped up the Marlins so much this offseason coming up? I mean, and I think I want to get into this. I mean,
How
do you
about
guys?
the Braves?
The Braves, yeah.
How about the Braves? They
Yeah,
lost
Adam
like
Duvall
they
learned some
lost.
good base running
They lost
skills.
a bunch of really good players. They didn't care. Freddie Freeman just said, "Nope, sorry, we're still doing this."
Yeah, I
And
mean, we like to
it's
think
funny how
about
you
the
have these
Marlins.
guys from the Marlins, going now to the ALCS and the NLCS, Duvall, Yimi Garcia. It's just crazy to think,
They count for wins
getting
for
rid of
us.
those guys
Really.
are now. Yeah, because when they won a World Series, then they should add another ring, another banner to Lone Depot easily.
Also, Adam Duvall is showing off his Marlins base running skills. Great job.
Yeah, that's 2 times now that Duvall shit the bed on the bases this postseason. Twice.
But
If
I mean,
you
the
were-
thing I've seen from the Braves is that for whatever reason, people are really quick to anoint the Marlins as having like the deepest pitching in the division. And I mean, maybe organizationally, if you go all the way through every level, but at the major league level, I mean, what the Braves are showing this postseason is, one, they got Charlie Morton, who even especially in the postseason, like, he's perfectly good to be your rotation leader in these situations. And Ian Anderson, like, as long as he's been healthy in his young career, he's been a sub-3 ERA guy, and he's been even better in the postseason. He was great for them last year as well, in 3 different rounds. And presumably they'll get a little bit of Mike Soroka back next year. Max Fried was awesome last year. Got to a slow start this year. And then quietly during the second half of the year, he was one of the best lefties in baseball. Like, that's how they've done it, really, because all the attention goes to all the position players they acquired at the deadline, and Duvall and all that stuff. And Duvall has been clutch in run scoring situations, but they're not a great offensive team right now. They did not win this series with their bats. They averaged probably 4 runs a game in this series, maybe even a little bit less than that. They won it with their pitching, and their pitching, I think it should scare people that all their key pitchers are going to come back. They extended Charlie Morton. All those other guys are younger and under control. It's one thing that it was not a big accomplishment to win the division, because I think a team of all of us together, but there's 6 of us, and if we got like the right 3 or 4 people to fill out a lineup, we'd have a chance to steal this division this year. That's
I'm a
how
bit hurt, so
yeah, we would need you on the IL. That would clear a roster spot for somebody else.
You give me the manager, Noah. You give me the manager, putting
Fine.
guys in position, you'd
Yeah,
be our
nobody
Donnie.
gave the Braves a lot of credit for making the playoffs, but I think as soon as they've been in here in that series versus the Brewers, it was against not a great offensive team, but still a really good team that they went up against and beat them in different facets of the game, but especially pitching. And it's something that Marlins should be really worried about next year. That is, if they get Acuna back, if they bring Freddie Freeman back, that's probably the biggest one, but we expect that to happen, that they're going to be a threat for the foreseeable future. They are the biggest team that the Marlins have to worry about. They've been the kings of the division throughout this rebuild, and they're going to continue to be in that position until somebody knocks them off.
Yeah, and props to the Brewers. I mean, they put up one good series too. I mean, with the moves they made, they got Escobar, they got Willie Adames. And then, old friend Christian Yelich was on that team. We really look at these playoffs team, and I think there's at least one Marlin that was at least on each team when we really look at it. Besides, I think the Red Sox. On the Yankees, it was Stanton.
Oh, well, the Red Sox had Nathan Eovaldi. I
TK
kind
Oh,
of went
yeah.
through all the teams. Like you could find connections on every single team. This is one of the maybe I'm the only one that's interested in doing this stuff. I do that before every playoffs. I look at all the rosters because the Marlins have this history of trading people. That is the one
Yeah.
thing that's been the constant throughout the entire history of the franchise. Everybody eventually gets traded, and some of them go on to great success elsewhere. Some of them don't, but you can find connections on every single roster for sure.
And I think we've seen the most success with Yemi Garcia getting absolutely rocked at some points during games. But I mean, we got Dela Cruz out of that, so I think that's the good part. And since there's no Marlins game, we do have a series prediction. We have Giants versus Dodgers, which is tomorrow. I'm not sure what the pitching matchup is, but I'll bet it's a good
It's
one. I mean,
Logan Webb versus Julio Urias. That's going to be
Ooh,
the
that's a
pitching
hell of a
that
matchup.
should be good.
I'm-
Yeah,
my prediction is 20 innings.
yeah, I think
20
that's been
innings.
The stat I saw was
Minimum.
that the Dodgers have won 18 of the last 21 games that Urias has started, and the Giants have won 19 of the last 21 games that Webb has started. Like these guys are automatic when they're on the mounds, even though
Wow.
they're not the first guys we think of when we think of these teams. They've had career years, both of them.
Mhm.
combined, like I think 30 wins this season just between the two guys. And I don't think the Marlins, if you have 5 guys, add up to 30 wins. That's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna start here with Alex. Prediction time: who wins, Dodgers, Giants? And I guess let's spice it up. I guess what would be your World Series matchup that we're gonna see this season?
Well, this series is going to be really fun. Well, Dodgers Giants, ultimate rivalry. I used to live in San Diego. I know it really well. They were upstate. Of course, San Diego's a little further south. But Dodgers fans that lived near San Diego or around where I was living hated the Giants. They just hated them. So it's always been a fun rivalry. And here it is. You know, these were two of the best teams in the league this year, and they're facing off now. So, man, I think this, if one of these teams was in the American League, would be an amazing World Series matchup in itself. So I think you're seeing the World Series before the World Series right now in this series. So that's how good I think this could be. But, yeah, huge matchup tomorrow, as Isaac said. Both those guys, as Eli said, have been amazing. Kind of unheralded, I guess I would say a little bit, because you want to think about bigger names. But, man, in terms of production, those guys have been incredible. So, yeah, it's going to be a great game. Prediction for it's going to be low scoring, I think. Man, it's hard to pick. I'll give it the slight edge to the Giants because they're playing at home, and as I said, their fans show up, and they have shown up all year long, and it's going to be tough to wear blue in that stadium. So in that regard, I'll give it to the Giants. But that's going to be a great game. And then World Series matchup. I'm going to make my dad happy. I'll say Red Sox Giants World Series matchup.
All right, Noah, what's your prediction?
So I'm gonna go with the Giants, because I just think right now they're just a better and deeper team, and they're just better right now. I think the Dodgers might pull off another one, but I think it'll be the Giants, and I really am gonna have trouble deciding between the offensive powerhouse of the Astros and the offensive powerhouse of the Red Sox. I tell you one thing: tomorrow night's game is going to be very high scoring. I'm sorry, tomorrow night's game is going to be very low scoring. The Astros and Red Sox series, there's going to be like 20 runs a game. There's going to be 20 runs a game. Those teams both hit like crazy. And both of those parks have a short left field. So righties are going to bomb. I think it'll be Giants and Red Sox in the World Series.
All right, Isaac, what's your prediction there?
Tomorrow, I think Julio Urias has been there. I think the Dodgers are the better team. The Giants just have that, that special feeling this year that they might go deep. But I think the Dodgers somehow win tomorrow night's game. I think Urias pitches out of his mind. The guy won 20 games this year, so I think he's going to win one more.
Jeez.
And then for the World Series, I got to go Red Sox, Dodgers. That's going to be a fun one. And that's what I think baseball wants, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Let's go with Daniel here. What's your prediction?
My heart says Giants, but my head says you can't bet against the Dodgers, especially Urias and that dangerous lineup. And I'm gonna go ahead and say we get a rematch between Astros and Dodgers, with the Dodgers taking it.
Eli?
Well, you didn't completely steal mine, but so in Game 5, Dodgers and Giants, I have the Dodgers figuring out a way to win it. It's going to be Gavin Lux, the star of the show, reminding the Dodgers that they can let Chris Taylor go. They already got their guy in the future. They're
Welcome to
all right.
Miami, Chris Taylor.
Yeah, so they're going to advance. So that leaves us with the Red Sox and the Astros on the AL side. And man, if the Red Sox make it to the World Series, then I mean, what's the even point of playing out the regular season? They look so bad during the final 2 months of the regular season. So much credit goes to Alex Cora for leading them through that, for leading them into these playoff wins of both the wild card game, but especially in that series against the Rays. He had an amazing managerial series. He's my favorite manager in baseball. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the Astros are going to advance. On the NL side, I am in the same camp as a couple of you guys, thinking that, I mean, the Dodgers seem to have it all figured out, and they're going to – who would they face? They advance the Braves, yeah. As much, I have a lot of respect for the Braves. I wouldn't be shocked if the Braves put it all together just because of how much their pitching is clicking right now. They probably have the most dangerous pitching staff that's left in these playoffs, which is just an amazing thing to think about from where they were early in the year. But ultimately, I think we're going to get Astros and Dodgers in the World Series, with the Astros winning it this time. And there's going to be a lot of good discourse about that. I can't wait for the discourse if that happens. Especially, I'm going to be most happy for Dusty Baker. I do not have I think Alex Cora is that guy that I'd want in the dugout over anybody else, but Dusty Baker is probably a close second. He's pretty awesome. And the kind of career that he's had, this would be the cherry on top of getting him noticed as a Hall of Fame caliber manager, which he already is, in my opinion.
Yeah. Logan Webb versus Julio Urias. You would have imagined this scenario maybe being Max Scherzer versus, I guess, a Kevin Gausman. Game 5, winner takes it all, and they go to the ALCS. But Logan Webb has been really good for the Giants this season. I guess he's been one of those guys who surprised many. Julio Urias, we know who he is. He's been one of the more dominant pitchers in this league. Very underrated. He's not known too much because Max Scherzer, at the time, was Trevor Bauer at the start of the season. Clayton Kershaw. I'm gonna go Giants. They have a really good team. Chris Bryant's on that team. Yastrzemski's on that team. Brandon Belt's been really good this season, as well as Crawford. Those guys have really revived themselves. Buster Posey. And then you have the battle of the cheaters pretty much on the other side. You have Astros versus Red Sox. I'm going to go Giants, Red Sox World Series. I think that would be very cool.
Did you have to?
I
Did
think
you
the
have
top,
to?
I did.
Did you have to?
Yeah, no. The top part of the stream all has the same predictions. Even though I do want to see the Braves in the World Series, I never thought I'd say that, but it would be cool to see a new team in the National League in the World Series that isn't the Dodgers, because it's kind of repetitive sometimes. But
Marlins will be in the
Sox
next year. We'll be the new team.
I can move the faces around so that you don't all line up. We'll put Noah in the bottom corner like that, so that we're all separated. Don't put Noah in the middle right there. There we go. I wish I knew how to do this stuff early in the year. The production quality of these streams, I think they're better now than they ever have been. And
it's going up.
Yeah, it's going up. Big things this
going to the
offseason.
moon.
Yeah, we got big things coming up for these streams in the season. It was a little bit of a depleted stream when it comes to news. We had the Arizona Fall League, obviously, and the what else do we have? We had the developmental camp, which was interesting to see all those videos of these young guys who not many people actually see. So,
if you guys really wanted something to talk about, I could have spoken about the Panthers for 2 hours, but you guys won't let me.
Yeah, well, no, you wanted to make your prediction on their points total for this season? Go, have at it.
Over 100.
Noah, who wins tonight in the Panthers game? I don't even know.
They don't play tonight.
Oh. Okay, who wins the first game though?
Tomorrow night against the Penguins. I'll be there. We're winning.
All right, and that's how we'll end
first.
it. Bold prediction from Noah Burger. Panthers are gonna win tomorrow night. I think that's where we're gonna end it. I mean, guys, in the comments, sending questions so we can answer them on stream. You know, we love you guys. You guys make this happen every day. So, yeah, from Alex, Isaac, Daniel, Noah, Eli, and myself, Kevin, go Marlins, and we'll see you guys whenever the next stream is. Peace out.